The alien girl came to me and asked me to fix her toy. Then she asked if I could fix her mom. The hum of Oralis 9 was a constant ache, a metallic pulse that vibrated through Jonas Reeves' boots as he hunched over his workbench. The orbital station, tethered 12,000 kilometers above a planet scarred by war's fading echoes, felt like it was holding its breath. Sparks flickered from a loose panel in the corridor outside, and a wrench floated upward before clanging back to the floor. Gravity's little tantrums were getting worse. Jonas, 42, ignored it, his calloused fingers twisting a wire in a biotech implant. His booth, a cluttered corner of rusted tools and half-dead circuits, was his shield against the world. But his hands shook, not from the cold, but from a memory. A city erased by his own gravity weapon, his wife and daughter gone with it. He muttered to himself, "Just keep working. Don't look back." A soft scuffle broke his focus. An 8-year-old girl, Mira Halden, ducked through the booth's tattered curtain, clutching a broken jumping rabbit bot. Its circuits sparked weakly, synthetic fur charred at the edges. Her eyes, wide and fearless, locked onto Jonas like he was the only thing in the universe. "Hey, mister, can you, fix broken stuff? Like really broken?" She held up the bot, its springs dangling like a wounded pet. Jonas squinted, his voice gruff. "Bots, yeah. People? Not so much." Mira didn't flinch, just plopped onto a stool, watching him like he was unraveling a mystery. She leaned closer as he pried open the rabbit's casing, her questions spilling out. "Why's it all twitchy? Did its brain forget how to hop?" Jonas snorted, holding up a frayed wire. "Brain's fine, just got a bad connection. Like most things around here." Her giggle was a spark in the booth's gloom, and Jonas felt something shift, a warmth he hadn't known in years. He handed her the bot's spring, showing her how it coiled. Mira's fingers brushed his and he pulled back, startled by the contact, the booth's hum suddenly too loud. The curtain whipped open, and Lyra Holden stormed in, her security badge catching the flickering light. At 35, she was all sharp lines, her neural control chip glinting at her temple like a warning. "Mira, what did I tell you? Home, now!" Her voice was cold, mechanical, but her eyes darted to Jonas, sharp with suspicion. Mira clutched the rabbit and scurried out, mumbling, "Sorry, Mom." Lyra lingered, her gaze cutting through Jonas. "Stay away from her, mechanic." She left, the air heavy with her warning, and Jonas exhaled, thinking the kid was gone for good. A jolt rocked the station, gravity stuttering. Tools floated, then crashed, and shouts echoed down the corridor. Jonas cursed under his breath, darting to a gravity node in the wall. His fingers moved fast, recalibrating the system with a skill he kept buried. A worker nearby, a wiry tech named Kale, gaped. "How'd you just fixed that. Who are you, man?" Jonas shrugged, wiping sweat from his brow. "Just a guy who knows wires. Don't make it a thing." The hum steadied, but Jonas felt eyes on him, his past creeping closer. Days later, Mira slipped back in, a shiny bolt in her hand. "It's, for fixing Hopper. That's his name." She grinned, holding up the rabbit bot, now half-patched. Jonas raised an eyebrow, sliding her a tray of screws. "Hopper, huh? Guess you're paying me to be your assistant now." She giggled, sorting screws with care, her chatter filling the booth. Stories of floating toys, flickering lights, the station's quirks. "Sometimes my cup just floats like it's dancing." Jonas listened, the screws' clinks blending with her voice, softening the station's cold edge. In the security hub, Lyra stared at a monitor, her chip humming as it dulled a flicker of worry. Jonas's node repair played on a loop. Too precise, too fast. "Nobody's that good. Not a nobody." She logged it, her fingers pausing over Mira's name. The chip kept her steady, but her hand lingered on a photo of Mira taped to her console, a crack in her control. She turned away, the image of Mira laughing in Jonas's booth burning in her mind. Mira returned the next day, showing off Hopper's clumsy leaps. "Look, he's wobbly, but he's ours." Her pride hit Jonas like a pulse, the station's gray fading behind her smile. He muttered, "Not bad, for a pile of junk." Her laugh warmed the booth, but it scared him. Connection was a risk, and he'd lost too much to trust it. He glanced at her, then away, the hum of Oralis 9 pressing against his chest. A crackle cut through the moment. A Helix Core broadcast blared over the comms, cold and final. Compliance audit initiated. All personnel prepare for review. Non-essential systems will be cleansed. Jonas froze, his gut twisting. Audits meant digging, and digging meant his past, his weapon, his guilt could surface. Mira, oblivious, fiddled with Hopper, her small hand steady. What's an audit? Sounds boring. Jonas forced a smirk. Yeah, kid, real boring. Don't worry about it. But his eyes stayed on the comms, the weight of secrets pulling like gravity, threatening to drag him down. The hum of Oralis 9 buzzed like a trapped insect, sharp and restless, vibrating through Jonas Reeves' cramped booth. He hunched over a gravity calibrator, its faint glow flickering as he coaxed a wire into place. The station's decay pressed in. Rusted tools, tangled circuits, and biotech scraps cluttered his workbench, a flimsy barricade against the world. The Helix Core audit's cold broadcast still lingered in his ears, a warning that secrets wouldn't stay buried. Mira Halden slipped through the curtain, her small frame darting like a spark in the dim light. She dumped a pile of mismatched bolts onto the bench, her grin bright enough to rival the station's flickering panels. Found these in a vent. Look, they're all, different sizes. Can I help today? Jonas glanced up, his fingers pausing, a faint smirk tugging at his lips. You're gonna wreck my system, kid, but fine, sort them by size. Don't make a mess. Mira's hands dove in, the clink of metal a steady rhythm against the station's drone, her presence a quiet rebellion against its gloom. Her questions spilled out as she sorted, each one chipping at Jonas's guarded edges. This thing, it keeps stuff from floating, right? Like the whole station? She pointed at the calibrator, its core humming softly. Jonas nodded, sliding it toward her to show the pulsing light inside. Yeah, it keeps us grounded, when it feels like cooperating. Mira's laugh was quick, bright, and it hit Jonas like a stray current, loosening the knot of guilt in his chest. A city arrest, his wife and daughter gone in a flash of his own making. He turned back to the calibrator, his hands steady but his mind unsteady, her voice pulling him back to the present. You're like, a wizard with this stuff. Bet you could fix anything. Jonas snorted, shaking his head. Not even close, kid. Some things, they don't fix. But her grin didn't fade, and the booth felt a fraction warmer, its hum less oppressive. In the security hub, Lyra Halden stood rigid, her neural control chip glinting like a coal star at her temple. Workers stumbled through an evacuation drill, their boots clanging on warped floors as alarms blared. Move it! You're not outrunning a hull breach like that. Her voice sliced through the chaos, sharp and mechanical, but her fingers brushed a photo of Mira taped to her console. The chip dulled the warmth that stirred, but her jaw clenched, a crack in its control. Taryn, a wiry subordinate, leaned over, muttering, She's wound tighter than a coil today. Something's off. Lyra's eyes flicked to him, then back to the photo, her hand lingering as if it could hold on to Mira through the image alone. The chip hummed, fighting her rising unease, but she straightened, barking another order to mask it. The station's comms crackled, and a Helix Core assessor's voice cut through, cold as the void outside. Lyra Halden, report for emotional evaluation within 24 hours. Non-compliance risks reassignment of your dependent. The hub fell silent, workers exchanging glances, fear threading through the air like static. Helix Core's plan was clear. Lyra's chip, designed to suppress emotion, was their excuse to take Mira to a corporate facility. Lyra's hand tightened on the console, the photo creasing under her grip. She marched toward Jonas's booth, her boots echoing like a countdown, her resolve to protect Mira burning beneath the chip's cold grip. Jonas was calibrating a medical scanner when its screen flickered, pulling up a DNA file that stopped his breath. Mira's genetic code stared back, an exact match to his daughter's. Lost years ago in the disaster he'd caused. His hands shook, the scanner slipping, clattering onto the bench like a dropped truth. No, this can't be right. His voice was a whisper, the booth's hum swallowing it. Mira, a clone, was a ghost of his past, reborn in a lab he'd never known. He shoved the file into a hidden drive, his pulse hammering, torn between silence and the need to unravel the truth. His fingers gripped the bench, as if it could anchor him against the storm in his chest. Lyra burst in, her chip pulsing faintly, her eyes sharp with accusation. "Why's she always here, mechanic? What's your game?" Her voice was a blade, but her hand twitched, the chip struggling to hold back her fear. Jonas met her gaze, his own secrets pressing against his ribs. "She's a kid who likes fixing things. You got a problem. It's not with me." Lyra stepped closer, her breath catching, the chip's hum faltering. "I pulled her from a lab, saved her from being scrapped. She's mine, understand?" The words spilled out, raw and unguarded, a confession that hung heavy between them. She turned, leaving the curtain swaying, her footsteps fading into the station's hum. A gravity pulse hit, stronger than before. Corridors groaned, lights flickered out, and tools floated before crashing down. Jonas rushed to a node, his hands moving with a precision that betrayed his past. He patched it, the hum steadying, but Lyra watched from a shadowed corner, her chip sparking as she noted his skill. "Nobody moves like that. Not a nobody." Her suspicion deepened, her hand slipping into her pocket to touch Mira's photo, grounding her. She turned away, but the image of Jonas's hands on the node lingered, a puzzle she couldn't ignore. Mira, hidden in a vent near the hub, overheard the assessor's plans through a comms leak. Her small hands gripped Hopper, the rabbit's springs creaking as she squeezed. "Mom's not broken. She loves me, I know it." "No." Her whisper was fierce, her eyes burning with a child's resolve to protect her family. She slipped out, darting back to Jonas's booth, her steps quick but silent, a small figure carrying a big fight. Back in the booth, Jonas and Mira worked on Hopper, tweaking its circuits side by side. Her fingers fumbled, but her focus was steady, a mirror of Jonas's own. "You make it look so easy, like you can fix anything." Jonas handed her a tool, his smirk soft. "Not everything, kid. Some stuff. It stays broken." Their hands brushed, the booth's hum softening, almost warm, like a shared pulse. Mira tilted her head, watching him. "But you fixed Hopper. That's not nothing." Jonas looked away, her trust a weight he wasn't sure he could carry. Another pulse shook the station, stronger, more desperate. Tools floated, then crashed, and shouts echoed from the corridors. Workers scrambled, their voices sharp with fear, and Jonas's eyes flicked to Mira, her small frame steady despite the chaos. "It's gonna be okay, right? You'll fix it." Her voice trembled, but her eyes held on to him, unwavering. Jonas nodded, his throat tight. "Yeah, kid. I'll fix what I can." But the audit's threat loomed larger. Helix Core's shadow creeping closer, its weight pulling like gravity, threatening to tear apart the fragile light Mira had brought into his world. Oralis 9 groaned under the strain of its failing systems. The hum jagged now, like a machine gasping for air. Jonas Reeves' booth was a fortress of flickering lights and tangled wires, but it felt like a cage as he wrestled with the truth. Mira's DNA, a perfect echo of his lost daughter, burned in his mind, locked away in the scanner's hidden drive. The Helix Core audit's threat hung heavy, a noose tightening around them all. Mira slipped in, quieter than usual, her small hands clutching Hopper, the rabbit bot's springs creaking as she fidgeted. "Jonas, you look, kinda lost today. Everything okay?" Her eyes, wide and searching, caught his, and he forced a half smile, sliding a screwdriver her way. "Just a rough day, kid. Keep those hands busy. Hopper's still got some kinks." Mira nodded, her fingers moving to the bot, but her gaze lingered, sensing the weight he carried. In the security hub, Lyra Halden stood before a console, her neural control chip pulsing faintly as an assessor's hologram flickered on. The assessor's voice was cold, slicing through the station's hum like a blade. "Lyra Halden, you have 24 hours to prove emotional fitness. Failure means reassignment of your dependent to a corporate facility." Lyra's knuckles whitened as she gripped the console, the chip dulling her panic but not her resolve. "She's my daughter. You don't get to take her." Her voice cracked, a rare slip past the chip's grip. The hologram's response was flat, unyielding. Your chip readings are inadequate. Comply or she's gone. Lyra's hand brushed Mira's creased photo taped to the console, her fingers trembling as she turned away. Boots stomping toward Jonas's booth, her heart pounding against the chip's cold leash. Jonas pulled out his emotion mapper, a palm-sized disc that hummed softly, its sensors designed to read biosignals, micro-expressions, heartbeats, the invisible threads of feeling. He set it on the bench, his hands steady but his chest tight. This thing, it sees what's real, not what their chips want to hide. Mira leaned closer, her eyes wide with hope. You mean it can show Mom's feelings? Like, prove she loves me? Jonas nodded, his jaw clenched. That's the plan, kid. Let's hope it's enough. He was staking everything on this, a desperate bid to keep Mira and Lyra together, to prove what Helix Core refused to see. They moved to a quiet bay, the mapper's glow casting soft light on Lyra and Mira as they stood close. Jonas activated the disc, its screen flickering to life, showing two waves, Lyra's fear spiking sharp and jagged, Mira's calm rising in gentle curves, their emotions weaving together like a silent promise. Jonas watched, his breath catching at the proof of their bond, a love that didn't need words. Look at that. It's real. It's enough. But the assessors, patched in via a feed, dismissed it with a sneer. This is irrelevant. We require chip logs, not experimental nonsense. Jonas's fist slammed the table, his voice sharp. You're measuring control, not love. You're blind. The feed cut off, the assessors' faces vanishing, leaving the bay heavy with silence. Lyra slipped into a storage room, her chips sparking as she clawed at it, fingers trembling. I feel her. Even through this, I feel her. She sank to the floor, Mira's photo pressed to her chest, her breath uneven as the chip's suppression frayed. The station's hum mocked her, a reminder of the humanity it tried to erase. She gripped the photo tighter, her knuckles white, as if holding it could keep Mira close. A gravity pulse tore through the station, the strongest yet. Floors buckled, air hissed from vents, and workers screamed, scrambling for cover. Jonas grabbed Mira, yanking her from the workbench as tools floated wildly. Stay with me, kid. Hold on. Her small hand clung to his, her eyes wide but steady, trusting him even as the station shook. The core was destabilizing. Helix Core's purge protocol no longer a whisper but a roar, ready to tear Oralis 9 apart. Lyra burst into the bay, her chip flickering as she faced Jonas, her voice raw. I know who you are, the gravity weapon. You built it. Her accusation hit like a shockwave, her hand twitching toward her sidearm before stopping. Jonas's face tightened, his past laid bare. I didn't mean for it to. I never wanted that. His voice was low, heavy with guilt. Lyra's eyes flicked to Mira, softening for a moment. She trusts you. Don't make me regret this. Her hand trembled, the chips sparking, caught between anger and the need to protect Mira. Mira, oblivious to the tension, slipped a folded drawing of Hopper into Jonas's hand, her smile soft but fierce. You fixed him. You can fix anything, Jonas, right? Her faith was a lifeline, steadying him as the station groaned. He tucked the drawing into his pocket, his throat tight. I'll try, kid. I'll try. Her small hand squeezed his, a quiet strength that anchored him amid the chaos. Kyle, the technician, watched Jonas patch another note in a corridor, his hands moving too fast, too precise. He's no mechanic. Guy's hiding something serious. He muttered to a co-worker, their whispers spreading like a current, isolating Jonas further. The station shook again, a massive pulse ripping through. Floors tilted, and Mira stumbled, nearly tumbling into a vent. Jonas lunged, pulling her back, his heart pounding. Got you. You're okay, kid. Mira clung to him, her breath quick, but her eyes held onto his trust. The core's hum was a desperate wail now, Helix Core's purge turning the station's gravity into a weapon. Jonas glanced at Mira, then Lyra, their faces lit by the mapper's fading glow. The truth, Mira's origins, Lyra's love, his own guilt, collided like debris in a storm, pulling them toward a breaking point. The station trembled, and Jonas's hand tightened on the mapper, its light a faint hope against the chaos threatening to tear them all apart. Oralis 9 trembled, its hum a frantic wail as gravity twisted like a beast caught in a trap. Corridors buckled, metal screaming as panels sparked, and air hissed from fractured vents, the station unraveling under Helix Core's purge protocol. Jonas Reeves stood in his booth, the emotion mapper's faint glow flickering in his hand, a fragile lifeline against the chaos. Mira Halden clung to Hopper, her rabbit bot, its springs creaking as she pressed it to her chest, her small frame shaking with each pulse that rocked the station. Her eyes, wide with fear but fierce with trust, locked onto Jonas. "Jonah, it's bad, isn't it?" "Really bad." Her voice trembled, but her grip on Hopper was unyielding. Jonas knelt, his hand steadying her shoulder, his heart pounding like a drum in his chest. "Yeah, kid, it's rough, but we're gonna fix it. Stick with me." His words were calm, but his fingers tightened on her shoulder, betraying the dread gnawing at him. The comms erupted, Helix Core's voice cutting through like a blade of ice. "Purge protocol initiated. All personnel, brace for system reset. Non-compliance is irrelevant." Screams echoed down the corridors as workers scrambled, their footsteps a chaotic rhythm against the groaning metal. Jonas's eyes snapped to the booth's monitor, the core's readings spiking wildly, a chaotic sphere of warped gravity threatening to tear Oralis 9 apart. His jaw clenched, the truth hitting like a shockwave. This was his old gravity weapons design, corrupted into a monster. "I know this thing! I can stop it!" His whisper was heavy, his hands already grabbing tools, each movement deliberate but tinged with the weight of a cost he couldn't yet name. Lyra burst through the curtain, her neural control chips sparking erratically, her face pale but her eyes burning with defiance. "You're not going to that core alone, Jonas. I'm with you." Her voice cracked, the chips struggling to contain the flood of fear and resolve pouring through her. Jonas shook his head, clutching the mapper, his knuckles white. "Your chip's gonna fry, Lyra. You can't handle this." She slammed her fist on the bench, tools rattling, her eyes blazing. "I don't care. She's my daughter. I'm not losing her to this station or Helix Core." Her hand trembled, clutching Mira's crumpled photo, her anchor to the love she'd fought to keep. Mira's voice cut through, small but sharp as a blade. "Mom, no! Don't go! I need you here!" She lunged, wrapping her arms around Lyra's waist, her face buried against her mother's side, tears soaking through. Lyra froze, her hand hovering over Mira's hair, the chips sparking as her eyes welled up, a rare fracture in its control. "Mira, I have to keep you safe. That's all I've ever done." She knelt, cupping Mira's face, her fingers brushing away tears, her own voice breaking as she fought the chip's fading grip. Mira's hands clung to her. Desperate, Hopper pressed between them like a shared heartbeat. Jonas moved fast, linking the emotion mapper to Lyra's chip, its wires humming as he rerouted its signals with practiced precision. "This'll short it out. You'll feel everything, Lyra. Everything." His voice was steady, but his eyes were heavy, meeting hers with a quiet understanding. The chip flickered, then dimmed, and Lyra gasped, her hands shaking as a tidal wave of emotions crashed through. Fear, love, pain, all raw and unfiltered. It's too much, but it's her." She clutched Mira's photo, her breath ragged, tears streaking her face as she stood, resolve hardening like steel. They fought through the station's warped corridors, gravity lurching wildly. Tools floated, then slammed down, sparks raining like dying stars. Jonas steadied Lyra as a panel buckled, his arms shielding her from a shower of debris. "Keep moving, we're close." His voice was sharp, but his grip on her arm was gentle, a silent vow to see her through. Lyra stumbled, her breath catching as emotions overwhelmed her, her hand brushing Jonas's in a fleeting moment of connection. "I've never felt like this, not since her." Her voice was raw, her eyes fixed on the path ahead, Mira's face burning in her mind. In the command bay, Mira huddled by a backup node, her small hands trembling as she followed Jonas's voice over the comms. "It's like fixing Hopper, right? I can do it." I can. Her voice shook, but her fingers moved with care, adjusting dials as the station groaned around her. She clutched Hopper, its springs creaking, her eyes locked on the node's flickering lights, willing it to hold steady. A worker nearby, a young tech named Kyle, watched her, his own hands shaking. Kid's braver than all of us. She's keeping it together. His voice was soft, awed, as he braced against the bay's wall, the station's chaos pressing in. Lyra's voice crackled through the comms, raw and unshackled, as they reached the core's chamber. I chose her, Jonas. Every single day, I chose her. Her words were a vow, her hand gripping his arm as the core loomed, a pulsing sphere of warped gravity, distorting the air like a living nightmare. Jonas's face tightened, recognizing the shadow of his own creation. This ends here, for her, for both of you. His eyes flicked to Lyra, then to the comm screen showing Mira's determined face, his resolve a quiet fire. In the security hub, Terran stared at the monitors, the core's readings spiking into critical levels. It's gonna blow. We're out of time. His voice broke. Workers around him clutching walls, their fear a heavy pulse in the air. Whispers spread. Jonas, the ghost mechanic, was their last hope. But the cost hung unspoken, a shadow over the station's trembling frame. Jonas faced the core, its hum a deafening roar, gravity crushing the air around him. He glanced at Lyra, her face raw with tears, her hand still clutching Mira's photo. Get to the bay. Help Mira. I've got this. His voice was steady, but his hand lingered on the mapper, its glow fading like a dying star. Lyra shook her head, tears streaming down her face. You can't do this alone. We need you. But Jonas pushed her toward the exit, his eyes soft but unyielding, his hand brushing hers one last time. The core's light flared, swallowing the chamber, and the station's fate rested on a choice that would shatter them all. Aurelius Nine's core chamber pulsed with a chaotic hum, the air thick with warped gravity that bent light and crushed breath. The sphere at its center glowed like a trapped supernova, its energy tearing at the station's seams. Jonas Reeves stood before it, the emotion mapper clutched in his trembling hand, its faint light a fading hope against the storm. His face was set, but his eyes flickered with the weight of his past. A city erased, his family lost to his own creation, now mirrored in this monstrous core. Lyra Halden stood beside him, her neural control chip dark, its circuits burned out by the mapper's hack. Her breath came in ragged gasps, emotions flooding her. Fear, love, desperation, all raw and unfiltered. Jonas, there's got to be another way. You can't. Her voice broke, her hand gripping his arm, fingers digging in as if she could pull him back from the edge. Jonas shook his head, his jaw tight, the core's light casting shadows across his face. This is it, Lyra. I built something like this once. I know what it takes to stop it. His words were steady, but his hand brushed hers, lingering for a moment, a silent apology for what he knew was coming. The core's readings spiked on a nearby panel, its hum a deafening roar, and Jonas's eyes darted to the comm screen showing Mira in the command bay. Her small figure hunched over a backup node, her hands trembling but precise. Mira, you're doing great, just like fixing Hopper. Keep it steady. His voice was calm, a lifeline across the chaos, but his fingers tightened on the mapper, the weight of his choice pressing like gravity itself. In the command bay, Mira's hand shook as she adjusted the node's dials. Hopper clutched against her chest, its springs creaking with each movement. Her eyes were wide, tears brimming but unshed, fixed on the node's flickering lights. I'm trying, Jonas. I'm really trying. Her voice trembled, but her fingers moved with a child's fierce determination. Each turn of the dial a fight to keep the station alive. A worker nearby, Kyle, braced against the bay's wall, his face pale as the station groaned. Kid's keeping us alive. She's braver than any of us. His voice was soft, awed, his hands gripping the wall as another pulse rocked the bay. Lyra's eyes locked on Jonas, tears streaming down her face, her hand still clutching Mira's crumpled photo. You don't have to do this. We can find another way. Her voice was raw, desperation breaking through as she stepped closer, her free hand reaching for him. Jonas turned, his eyes soft but unyielding, the core's light painting his face in stark relief. I broke everything once, Lyra. Not again. Not her. He transferred the core's controls to the command bay, his fingers steady but his chest tight, the mapper's glow fading in his hand. He glanced at the comm screen, Mira's face filling it, her small hands working the node. Mira, you've got this, just like we practiced. His voice cracked, a rare fracture, and he turned back to the core, its hum swallowing the air. Lyra grabbed his arm, her grip fierce, tears falling freely now. She needs you, Jonas. We both do. Her voice was a plea, her face raw with the love she'd fought to feel. Jonas met her gaze, his hand brushing hers one last time, a quiet promise. Hold on to her, Lyra. That's enough. He stepped toward the core, gravity warping around him, pulling at his frame like a tide. The chamber's walls groaned, sparks raining as the station trembled. In the command bay, Mira's hands faltered, a sob escaping as she adjusted the node. Jonas, you're coming back, right? You have to! Her voice was small, desperate, her eyes locked on the comm screen. Jonas's face flickered there, his smile soft but heavy. Just keep that node steady, kid. You're doing perfect. His words were a lifeline, but his hand moved to the core's manual override, the panel glowing red, demanding a sacrifice. The chamber shook, gravity crushing tighter, and Jonas's breath hitched, his eyes fixed on Mira's image. The security hub was chaos, monitors flashing critical as workers braced against walls. Taryn's voice broke through, frantic. Core's at critical. It's gonna take us all. His hands shook, clutching the console, fear etched into every line of his face. Whispers spread among the crew. Jonas, the ghost mechanic, was their last hope. But the cost hung heavy, unspoken. Jonas activated the override, the core's light flaring like a dying star, swallowing the chamber. Hold on to each other. His whisper crackled through the comms, soft but final, as the core's hum steadied, the tremors fading. Mira collapsed in the command bay, a sob tearing from her throat, Hopper falling to the floor. Jonas, no! Her small hands clutched the node, tears streaming as the light stabilized. Lyra sank to her knees in the corridor outside the core, her chip burned out, her face raw with grief. You gave us everything? Her voice was a whisper, her hands trembling as she clutched Mira's photo, tears soaking the crumpled paper. The station's hum softened, steady now, but the silence in the core chamber was deafening, a void where Jonas had stood. Kyle stared at the monitors, his breath catching as readings normalized. He did it. The core's stable. He saved us. His voice was thick, awe and loss tangled together, as workers whispered of the mechanic who'd vanished into the light. Mira curled up in the command bay, Hopper's spring silent in her hands, her eyes fixed on the comm screen, now dark. The station stood, saved but scarred, its heart forever marked by a choice that bound them all. Oralis 9 stood silent, its hum softened to a weary sigh, the station's corridors littered with twisted metal and shattered panels. The purge protocol's chaos had faded, but the air felt heavy, thick with the weight of what had been lost. Lyra Halden stumbled through a debris-strewn hallway, her neural control chip gone, its casing cracked and discarded in her pocket. Her face was raw, tear-streaked, her hands trembling as she clutched Mira's crumpled photo, the edges worn from her grip. She paused, leaning against a warped wall, her breath uneven. Jonas, you didn't have to. Her voice was a whisper, choked with grief, her fingers tracing the photo as if it could anchor her against the void he'd left behind. In the command bay, Mira Halden curled up beside the backup node, her small frame shaking, Hopper clutched to her chest. The rabbit bot's springs were silent, its synthetic fur damp from her tears. Her eyes, red and swollen, stared at the comm screen, now dark, where Jonas's face had been moments ago. You said you'd fix it. You promised. Her voice broke, a sob escaping as she rocked back and forth, her small hands gripping Hopper like a lifeline. Kale, the technician, knelt nearby, his own hands unsteady as he checked the node's readings. Kid, You did good. He'd be proud. His voice was soft, thick with awe and sorrow. But Mira didn't look up. Her world narrowed to the loss burning in her chest. Lyra pushed into the bay, her boots crunching on debris, her eyes finding Mira instantly. She knelt, pulling Mira into her arms, her hands trembling as she smoothed the girl's hair. I'm here, Mira. I'm right here. Her voice was raw, unshackled by the chip, each word heavy with love and grief. Mira clung to her small frame shaking, her face buried in Lyra's shoulder. He's gone, Mom! He's gone! Her sobs were sharp, cutting through the bay's silence, and Lyra held her tighter, tears streaming down her own face, her hands stroking Mira's back in a desperate rhythm. In the security hub, workers gathered, their faces pale but relieved as monitors showed the core's readings stable. Taran, the young officer, slumped against a console, his hand still gripping its edge. He did it. The ghost mechanic actually pulled it off. His voice was thick, a mix of disbelief and gratitude, as a whisper spread. Stories of Jonas's quiet fixes, a patched heater, a stabilized node, now crowned by his sacrifice. A cook nearby, her apron singed, muttered, "Fixed my stove once, never even asked for thanks." Her hands twisted together, her eyes distant, as if seeing Jonas in every corner of the station. Lyra and Mira moved to Jonas's booth, the air still thick with the scent of scorched wires. Mira's hands shook as she picked through debris, salvaging a tray of screws she'd sorted with Jonas. He showed me how, said I was good at it. Her voice was small, but her fingers moved with purpose. Each screw a piece of him she refused to let go. Lyra watched, her chest tight, her hand brushing Mira's shoulder. He saw you, Mira. Really saw you. Her words were soft, her eyes glistening as she picked up the emotion mapper, its screen frozen on Jonas's final reading, a steady wave of calm resolve, intertwined with their love. The station's logs, exposed by the core's shutdown, revealed Helix Core's secrets, cloning experiments, emotional suppression, the Purge's true purpose. The assessors fled, their authority crumbling under the weight of the truth. Workers gathered in the corridors, their voices low but defiant, united by Jonas's act. A technician, wiping sweat from her brow, hung Jonas's old sign, "We fix what others say can't be fixed." In the booth, her hands trembling with reverence. He proved it, didn't he? Her voice was quiet, but her eyes shone, reflecting the station's newfound strength. Mira pulled a folded drawing from her pocket, a sketch of Jonas beside Hopper, his smirk captured in clumsy lines. I won't forget you. I won't. Her whisper was fierce, her fingers tracing the paper as she tucked it back, her small frame steady despite the tears. Lyra knelt beside her, her hand resting on Mira's, their fingers intertwining. We'll carry him. Together. Her voice was a vow, her tears falling as she pulled Mira close, their bond a quiet fire in the booth's dim light. The station's hum steadied, its systems patched by workers moving with purpose, their hands guided by a shared resolve. Lyra led them, her voice softer now, no longer bound by the chip's cold grip. She directed repairs, her hand brushing Mira's photo in her pocket, grounding her. Keep those nodes tight. We're not losing this place. Her words were firm, but her eyes were warm, reflecting a humanity she'd fought to reclaim. Mira stood by the booth's window, Hopper in her hands, staring at the stars beyond. You're out there, aren't you? Keeping things steady. Her voice was soft, a child's hope mingling with her grief, her small hand pressing against the glass. Lyra joined her, their shoulders touching, the station's hum a quiet pulse around them. The scars of the purge remained, but Oralis 9 stood, held together by a bond forged in sacrifice, its light burning brighter than the core's fading glow. 5 years had passed, and Oralis 9 spun steadily, its hum now a quiet pulse of life. The station, once a decaying relic, thrived with 3,000 residents, war refugees, tech scavengers, families carving out a home among the stars. Its corridors, though scarred, buzzed with purpose, the air warm with the scent of solder and hope. Lyra Halden stood in the workshop she and Mira had named Gravity and Hope, her hands steady as she tweaked a family bot's circuits. Her neural control chip was long gone, its absence leaving her face softer, lined with the weight of loss, but alive with warmth. She paused, her fingers brushing a photo of Mira, now 13, taped to the workbench, her smile a quiet anchor. "You'd like this place now, Jonas." Her whisper was soft, her eyes glistening as she glanced at the sign above the door. "We fix what others say can't be fixed." Its letters faded, but proud. Mira darted into the workshop, her hands full of tools, her movements quick but precise, a mirror of Jonas's old finesse. At 13, she was taller, her eyes still bright but tempered by a quiet strength. "Mom, got another bot to patch. This one's got a wonky leg. Think I can fix it?" Her voice was eager, her hands already sorting wires, but her fingers lingered on a small sketch of Hopper tucked in her pocket, a reminder of Jonas. Lyra smiled, her hand brushing Mira's shoulder. "You're better than I am with those, kid. Show it who's boss." Her voice was warm, her eyes crinkling, a love unmuted by any chip. The workshop was a beacon, its benches cluttered with bots and emotional chips, tools for families fighting Helix Core's assessments. A young mother clutching her son's hand stood at the counter, her voice trembling. "They're saying I don't feel enough. Can you help us?" Lyra's hand steadied on the woman's, her nod firm. "We'll fix it. No one's taking him from you." Her words were a promise, her fingers tightening as she remembered her own fight. Mira's face flashing in her mind. She handed the woman a modified chip, her eyes soft with understanding. Mira worked nearby, tweaking a new emotion mapper, smaller and sharper than Jonas's old design. She tested it on Lyra, the screen lighting up with their synced waves, love, steady and strong. "Still got it, Mom. We're like totally in tune." Her grin was bright, but her hand brushed the sketch in her pocket, a quiet nod to the man who'd taught her to see connections. Lyra's hand ruffled Mira's hair, her smile soft but heavy. "Always, kid. Always." Her voice caught, her eyes glistening as she glanced at Jonas's sign, its words a vow they lived every day. In a quiet corner, Mira recorded a video journal for a school project, her voice steady but laced with emotion. "People say love's just chemicals, but on Orbital 9, it's gravity. It keeps us from floating away." Her hands fidgeted with Hopper, its springs creaking softly, her eyes distant as she remembered Jonas's voice guiding her through the node's dials. She paused, her fingers tracing the sketch, her breath hitching. "Someone showed me that, and I'm never letting it go." Her voice was fierce, a child's resolve grown into something unbreakable. A worker saved from an assessment years ago approached Lyra, his voice thick. "You and the kid, you gave me my family back. Thank you." His hand shook as he gripped hers, his eyes wet with gratitude. Lyra's smile was soft, her hands squeezing his in return. "We just fixed what was already there." Her words were quiet, but her eyes flicked to Mira, love anchoring her like a steady pulse. Lyra led the station's defenses, her voice now warm but firm, as she directed upgrades to the gravity nodes. "Tighten those relays. We're not letting Helix Core near us again." Her hand rested on a console, Mira's photo in her pocket, grounding her as workers moved with purpose, their trust in her unshaken. The station's hum was steady, its scars a testament to their survival, forged by a sacrifice that bound them all. Visitors came, drawn by whispers of the ghost mechanic who'd saved Orbital 9. A scavenger, his hands rough from salvaging tech, leaned in, curious. "Heard a guy fix this place. Some kind of legend. That true?" Mira, tweaking a bot, smiled faintly, her fingers pausing. "Something like that." Her voice was soft, her eyes on Hopper, letting the story grow without revealing the man behind it. Lyra and Mira stood at the workshop's viewport, the stars stretching endlessly beyond. Mira's hand pressed against the glass, Hopper tucked under her arm. "He's out there, right? Keeping things steady." Her voice was soft, hope and grief tangled together, her eyes searching the void. Lyra's hand rested on her shoulder, her own gaze distant but warm. "Yeah, kid. He's holding us together." Her voice was steady, her fingers tightening, their bond a quiet fire against the station's hum. The workshop buzzed, families coming and going, their hands clutching bots and chips, their faces lit with hope. Gravity and Hope was more than a name. It was a promise, a legacy carved from Jonas's sacrifice. Lyra and Mira worked side by side, their hands moving in sync, the station's pulse steady around them, a testament to a love that held stronger than any core. Aurelius 9 spun quietly among the stars, its hum a steady heartbeat, its corridors alive with the clatter of tools and voices of its 3,000 residents. The station, once a crumbling relic, had become a sanctuary, its scars softened by the warmth of those who called it home. In the workshop Gravity and Hope, Lyra Halden leaned over a workbench, her hands deftly rewiring an emotional chip, her face softer now, unburdened by the neural control chip she'd cast off years ago. Her fingers paused, brushing a photo of Mira, now 13, taped to the bench, its edges worn from her touch. "You'd be proud, Jonas. We're still fixing things." Her whisper was quiet, her eyes glistening as she glanced at the sign above the door. "We fix what others say can't be fixed." Its faded letters a beacon of their shared promise. Mira bustled in, her arms full of salvaged circuits, her movements quick but sure, a spark of Jonas's skill in every gesture. "Mom, got a whole batch of bots to patch. This one's got a glitchy arm. Think I can handle it?" Her voice was bright, but her hand slipped into her pocket, brushing the sketch of Jonas and Hopper, a quiet ritual of remembrance. Lyra's smile was warm, her hand ruffling Mira's hair. "You're already better than me, kid. Go show it who's boss." Her eyes crinkled, love shining through, her fingers lingering on Mira's shoulder, grounding her in the moment. The workshop was a haven, its benches cluttered with family bots and modified chips. Tools for those fighting Helix Core's lingering assessments. A father stood at the counter, his young daughter clinging to his hand, his voice low but desperate. "They're saying I don't feel enough for her. Can you make it right?" His eyes darted to his daughter, fear etched in every line. Lyra's hand rested on his, steady and sure. "We'll make them see. She's yours and that's enough." Her words were a vow, her fingers tightening as she handed him a rewired chip. Her own memories of fighting for Mira burning in her chest. Mira worked nearby, her hands tweaking a new emotion mapper, its design sharper than Jonas's original, its glow steady as she tested it. The screen lit up, showing her and Lyra's emotions intertwined. Love, strong and unyielding. "We're still synced, Mom. Like, totally perfect." Her grin was wide, but her fingers brushed the sketch in her pocket, a quiet nod to the man who'd shown her how to see those bonds. Lyra's hand squeezed hers, her smile soft but heavy. "Always, Mira. Always." Her voice caught, her eyes glistening as she glanced at Jonas's sign, its words woven into their every act. Mira sat in a quiet corner, recording her video journal, her voice steady but thick with emotion. "They say love's just chemistry, but here it's gravity. It holds us, even when everything's falling apart." Her hands fidgeted with Hopper, its springs creaking softly, her eyes distant as she remembered Jonas's calm voice guiding her through the node's chaos. She paused, her fingers tracing the sketch, tears welling but unshed. "Someone taught me that, and I'm keeping it alive." Her voice was fierce, a young girl's promise to carry his light forward. A worker, his hands rough from years on the station, approached Lyra, his voice thick with gratitude. "You and Mira, you saved my kid from those assessments. I owe you everything." His hand shook as he clasped hers, his eyes wet. Lyra's smile was soft, her hand returning the grip. "You never owed us. We just fixed what was already there." Her words were quiet, her eyes flicking to Mira, love anchoring her like a steady pulse. Lyra trained others in the workshop, her voice warm but firm as she showed them how to bypass emotional chip restrictions. Feel what's real. Don't let them take that from you. Her hands moved with purpose, guiding a young engineer's fingers, her eyes bright with a fire she'd reclaimed. The station's hum was steady, its defenses fortified under her lead. Helix Core's shadow, gone but never forgotten. Her hand brushed Mira's photo in her pocket, a quiet touchstone. A traveler, his coat patched from years of scavenging, leaned in, curious. Heard this place was saved by a ghost mechanic. That true? Mira, tweaking a bot's circuits, smiled faintly, her fingers pausing. Something like that. He fixed a lot of things. Her voice was soft, her eyes on Hopper, letting the legend grow without spilling the truth of Jonas's sacrifice. Lyra and Mira stood in the workshop, side by side, their hands moving in sync as they repaired a child's bot. The station's hum wrapped around them, a pulse of life, its people bound by a shared history. An engineer, inspired by their work, paused at the door, his voice low. This place, it feels alive now, like we're all tethered together. His hand rested on the frame, his eyes reflecting the workshop's glow. Mira finished her journal, her voice steady but warm. Love's the gravity that keeps us from floating away. He showed us that, and we're still here. Gunda, her hand pressed Hopper's springs, their soft creak a quiet echo of Jonas, her eyes bright with conviction. Lyra joined her, their shoulders touching, the stars beyond the viewport stretching endlessly. The workshop hummed, a haven of connection, Oralis 9 spinning on, held by an invisible force. Love stronger than any core's pull.